reason for the pit stop, and Dean Tompkins was living with it, losing ground, but then making that pit stop to say, look, we've got something that will fix it here, and they've got on with it, and that has helped the lap times of Dean Tompkins no end. Dan Bruce in 4th place in the Old Hat Motorsport car, 3 minutes 20 his last lap time. Then Steve Glynn in the Orange Motorsport car, and Gary Preble as well, as it was before. So no changes in the order, but it is getting pretty close as Steve Glynn, he's now losing ground a little bit, isn't he, from Dan Bruce. Down in the bottom 20th type places, one car that I can't remember us mentioning very often, if at all, the 401 Alex and Holmes car of Alex Jordan, Andrew Perry, Dan Quintero and Russ Olivant. Dan Quintero at the wheel at the moment of that car, 18th place overall, come off 401, just behind the car number 370, the Spy Motorsport car, currently in the hands of Joshua Potter. Spy Motorsport was a car that featured early on and faded. Now he's coming back into the reckoning. We've talked about the B Engineering car, that's in 19th place. In 20th place is car 368, Mark Richards in the PrepTech UK car 368, and then in 21st place Marino Franchitti, who's been out for quite a wee while, I think, in the number 351, the Stand Up to Cancer supporting car. That's the car which is supporting Stand Up for Cancer rather than it being the other way around. And Marino Franchitti, maybe I'm wrong, he hasn't actually been in the car that long, he's only been in there for 10 laps. So he's still got a good long time to be able to improve the position of that car, and I think 351 currently in 21st position. It's been there since the safety car period, but it's not been any higher than that, so that's a car slowly moving up the order, as one kind of half expected it would over the course of the race, staying out of trouble and just taking things as they come, keeping it all clean as they can. Into the pits for 398 on that lap. That's Gary Preble coming in with the Redneck Racing entered car. All 4 drivers will have driven that car by now. Got itself up into 5th place as a result of the various trials and tribulations of others and the way the pit stops have moved out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th place then on its 5th stop for Daniel Preble. And also in that time around, number 474 is the QE Celtic with Clapham North car in, and that's Stephen James making the pit stop in 474, and that too possibly a little bit earlier than would have expected for that car, but only 32 laps before coming into the pits to change drivers. Gap coming down first to second now, as well as Tim Hartland is beginning to close in on Darren Beckley, or he did on that lap anyway, and did so significantly too, to the tune of 5 seconds. So the interval down now to 28 seconds between Tim Hartland in the Circuit Pro car, 385 and 376 Darren Beckley. And also another car coming into the pits on that lap is 449, and that is Steve Glynn. So we've already talked about Gary Preble coming in, Steve Glynn coming in, and what's happened to a problem for the Viking car, 419, missed that. Dean Tompkins has suddenly gone missing and hasn't been around for what, about 7 or 8 minutes. So he's lost a lap out on the circuit. So Dean Tompkins stuck out on the circuit somewhere. We haven't seen a incident on any of our internal monitors. There certainly hasn't been a safety car, but Dean Tompkins then seemed to have fixed whatever was wrong with the car. I'd suggested that there might have been something that they'd got to the bottom of, and everything was now going well for the Viking team. No sooner has I said that than the car has stopped out on the circuit somewhere. So Dean Tompkins, everyone else has driven the car, but it's not going round at the moment, and so cars around it taking advantage and making up some ground, it has to be said. Darren Beckley goes through, completes his 179th lap. How far behind is Tim Hartley this time? It was 28 seconds previous time around, counting down to watching when Tim comes through again. Comes through now, 25 seconds, so 3:24 it was for Darren Beckley, a 3:24.1, a 3:21.7 for Tim Hartland. Pressure at this point getting harder and harder as we approach the half distance point in the race. Currently still 11 hours and 8 minutes on the clock, a further 12 hours 51 to go, and just 25 seconds separates first from second. Third place is Dan Bruce in the Old Hat Motorsport car, still on the lead lap, and he's only a minute and some back down the road. Then John Gladman is not far behind him. No, sorry, it's the orange Motorsport car which is in the pits, losing ground therefore. Clive Brookson is in the pits, he's the next one up. He'll be gaining back fourth place for Eastgate Automotive Racing. Then it's Alex Day now driving the 333 Toll Bar Racing car, taking it over from Rob Austin. Stuart Lynn in 411, the Kraken Motorsport car. Stuart then is 10 seconds ahead of Kieran MacDonald, and Kieran is just 8 seconds ahead of Katie Milner, who, having lost that place a couple of laps ago, Katie now lapping just as quickly. Clive Brookson goes through up into fourth place with the pit stop for Steve Glynn, for Stuart Glynn. So a reminder, I suppose, for just how fragile all of this is when a car that seems to be going well suddenly has a problem and starts slipping down the field. Because the fact of the matter is, once you do start slipping down the field, then you start slipping down very rapidly indeed. Dean Tompkins now down to 28th place, and the symbol alongside his name has changed, but I don't think that is for any other reason. No, still being shown on 174 laps, which was the point at which we noticed the problem in the first place. Or has he? No, he has been round again. Dean Tompkins. Very curious. Well, let's keep an eye on that, because I think Dean might actually be circulating again. So he might have just had a spin and has got the car going again. Had a 10-minute lap time. No, he isn't circulating at the moment. So a slight flutter there, as I thought he might have come round again, because he has come round again. So he did a 10-minute 16 lap time, and he has now gone round again. We'll see, and there he goes again across the line just now. So Dean Tompkins then losing 7 minutes on the previous lap, presumably having had a spin out on the circuit somewhere and getting going again. Now, whether that will result in a 3-lap penalty for outside assistance, or whether he managed to get himself going under his own steam, we'll have to wait and see until the message comes up on the screen. But that's desperately unlucky for car number 419, the Viking car that was taking turns to lead the race on the pit stop cycle, and then slipped off the lead lap, having had an extra pit stop, then had a spin on the circuit, and now Dean Tompkins is looking to make his recovery. His last lap 3 minute 26, not quite as quick as some, but quicker than the race leader at the moment on that lap, with the weather closing in once again. So Tompkins maybe just had a bit of a getaway with that one. Currently being shown as 28th. A 3-lap penalty for assistance coming up, shown for car number 400, the TCS Motorsport car, Richard Tarling, Christopher Earp, Paul Turner, Paul Abraham, Tom Mills's car. So, say, look out for a message like that coming up for the 419. And we'll see whether or not it's gone from bad to worse for Viking. But they've already lost 5 laps now on the race leader, the Citroen Racing car of Darren Beckley. But that gap coming down all the time as Tim Hartland closes in on him, the Circuit Pro car 385. 17.9 seconds now, the gap first to second. That's the gap that's been coming down over the recent laps. Both of them plenty of fuel aboard their cars, so they'll be able to take this one to the point where it's nose to tail, and then we'll have a battle on the circuit. And that's always interesting, where we try and pick them out, see where they are, and see when the place changes. Third place, 321, is the MSAR Old Hat Motorsport car. Dan Bruce in third place. He's over a minute behind the leading pair, but has Clive Brookson just 26 seconds behind him, although he's lapping generally quicker than Brookson in the Eastgate car. Brookson in the Eastgate car with less fuel aboard his car, incidentally. David Drinkwater is away having a bit of a rest, I would think, having done 2 stints early on in that car. So the driving for the moment being done by Clive Brookson. Remember, before that it was Dan Collett at the wheel of the car. And so back up into 4th place for the 318, but say Clive Brookson in the 318 with less fuel aboard, so he's going to be pitting sometime in the next half hour, whereas the top 3 fuel for an hour and a half, or something more like 2 hours, well maybe an hour and a half for the race leader Darren Beckley, having only recently taken over the Citroen car. Alex Day nicely fueled up as well, having taken over his car from the very rapid Rob Austin, and Rob getting the car going very nicely indeed on both of the stints that he has driven thus far, ably assisted by Alex Day. And then in the 411, which is now completed its most recent pit stop, we've got Stuart Lynn aboard that car. That's the top 6. ...181 laps completed by the top 5 cars, and it is the 5 cars that are on the lead lap now. Then we've got 3 cars 1 lap off the lead lap, the positions having been made much closer by the problems that were experienced by the Dean Tompkins Viking car, which, having lost that time, seems to be running okay again now. Lap times comparable with those of the leaders. Conditions getting worse again. Rain coming down more heavily. A car off in the gravel at Copse, and it's a very plain looking car indeed. I can't see the number quite from this distance, at this resolution at least, but possibility then of another safety car period, or at least a snatch having to be done in the Copse gravel bed. Again, it's quite a long way around the gravel, around Copse, kind of opposite the pit lane exit. I've had a car coming past the screen in the background there, coming out of the pits, and that's visible, so it's past the it's where the pit lane is, but beyond where the barrier separating the pit lane from the track is. And at the moment that car's stuck in the gravel. It's practically up to its axles, so has no option but to wait for the rescue unit to come to give it a tow out of the gravel, and then see if it can be shaken down and sent on its way again. I must admit, most of the time when we've had problems at Copse, they have been able to deal with them with local yellow flags. There's a big gravel bed there, and the rescue unit can stay on the service area, very much at the edge of the gravel bed, keeping as much out of harm's way as possible. So no indication who that is, who's off at Copse. At least none that I've been able to pick up just yet. And the car being made to sit there, it's almost as if they leave it there for 3 laps in order to give it the penalty, and then they go and get it with the tow truck. But sitting there, hazard warning lights flashing, so everybody can see what's going on. Headlights still on, but as I say, even if the engine will start up, there's no point in firing it up, because all that's going to happen, he's going to spin his wheels and embed himself even more deeply into the gravel there at Copse. And at the moment, there's a little bit of a delay getting the rescue unit to him. Having worked very efficiently earlier on, it's taking a little while before that one can be dealt with. Gap continuing to come down between the first 2 runners, and that gap has now come down to 10 seconds only, separating Darren Beckley from Tim Hartland. Citroen Racing from Circuit Pro, and as I said earlier on, plenty of fuel aboard both cars, so they can push on and continue to make a fight of it on the track. So Tim Hartland and his very experienced teammates, Simon Harrison and Patrick Watts, who have shared the driving just between the 3 of them, closing in on a shot at being able to lead the race before very long. Darren Beckley down at Stowe at the moment. Still that Citroen in the gravel with no sign of a rescue unit on its way to him. And just looking across, we've also got someone off in the gravel at Stowe. So quite a long way off in the gravel at Stowe. But so there's one off at Stowe, one off at Copse. That's another reason for yellow flags being shown around the circuit, and for some of the lap times being a bit slower. Also a possible reason why some of the gaps are being a bit erratic as they deal with the various incidents around the circuit and have these no overtaking zones. So again, little bits of delay around the place, and drivers having to observe the marshals' flags and lights. It's 490 that's off at Stowe. And just for the briefest moment, the windscreen wiper cleaned the screen, and we could catch the car in all its glory. That's the Voie 1 with JDC racing car number 490. Currently in the hands of Ben Thomas. The car just at the bottom of the top 30, but they'll lose that position fairly shortly, because they can't afford to stay there for very much longer, and it may well be that that's why we've got the delay with getting the rescue truck through to whichever the car is that's stuck at the outside of Copse. And so it's 427, but very difficult to read the number without a little bit more definition on the screen. 427, so it's only 421, the Majestic Motorsport car. Not sure about that one, but no doubt at all that the one that has gone off at Stowe Corner is number 490. So he was in 30th, and now the rescue truck is going to his assistance. It's down at, down at Stowe Corner. And given a tug from the track side to pull him out of the gravel and back onto the hard standing before he gets to the track. So there's quite an area of hard standing on the exit of Stowe Corner as you just turn right and then go down into the Vale. And looks like having got it onto the hard standing, that car is on its way again. So good news for the Voie team. And it's number 490, they're on their way, and the car has, I said it would lose one place, now lost 2 places, and so Ben Thomas is now having to explain to everybody else why there is so much gravel on the circuit, and it's because he dragged it back on again. The little Land Rover that did the pulling has now moved back to its hiding place behind the tyre wall, and now here arrives the rescue unit finally for the Citroen that is off at Copse Corner. And for some reason it's very difficult to catch the numbers from the angle that cars finish up at here, but it is possibly going to be able to get on its way again. First to second comes down by another 1.5 seconds on that lap, with Tim Hartland again just making a few inroads. 8.6 is the gap now. 184 laps completed, and we're half an hour away from half distance in the 2019 Distrigo Parts Distribution C1 Racing Club 24 Hours of Silverstone, and 8 seconds is all that separates the first 2 runners in the race. 376 Citroen Racing, Darren Beckley doing the driving ahead of 385 Circuit Pro Tim Hartland at the wheel. Next up is Dan Bruce at the wheel of the MSAR Old Hat Motorsport team car, number 321. They've had a bit of an up and down race, had their moments when things have been going well, had the moments when things have been going less well, but they do have that car still on the lead lap, closing in on both of the cars ahead of it. As we said, that gap was over a minute, it's now down to under a minute, and 53 seconds in fact is the gap back to number 321 in 3rd place. 4th place is Clive Brookson, another car that has led this race, number 318. That's the Escape Automotive Racing car, which was started by David Drinkwater, but Clive Brookson is now behind the wheel of it, and he is 36 seconds only behind the Old Hat Motorsport car. Then it's Tollbar Racing, and that means Alex Day at the moment, car number 333. He's had another good couple of stints. So has Rob Austin, who's also driven the car. 45.6 is the gap between him and the car ahead of him. And I think not only is Stowe Corner now completely clear, but also Copse is completely clear. The rain, however, continuing to patter down on our closed circuit TV cameras on the circuit, making it damp and horrible, and I know pattering down everywhere. So been probably a worse night than the forecasters suggested, and the rain, which is supposed to be clearing up as it gets lighter, it is getting a little bit lighter if you use your imagination, Certainly not going to see any sun, but it is getting a little bit lighter out there, so just some signs of lightness around the edges of the skies, and 11.5 hours still to go in this 24-hour race. Eight seconds last lap was the gap first to second, now down to 5.4 seconds, so we can count this down. It's not a matter of if anymore, it's just a matter of when. Tim Hartley closing in on Darren Beckley, the Citroen Racing car closing in, or sorry, the Circuit Pro car closing in on the Citroen Racing car. Race being led by Darren Beckley, and 376 had its various moments in the lead of the race, and currently the three drivers, Adam Burgess, Chris Nyland, Darren Beckley, have fought their way up to the front. Had a little bit of good fortune when they've needed it, used tactics, used the benefit of the safety car to make their pit stops when they've needed to, and have gone successfully around their business so far. But at the moment, Timothy Hartland going through, and in fact takes the lead of the race on that last lap. Very fast lap indeed from Tim, a 3 minutes 20.357. So Tim Hartland goes through into the lead of the race, takes Darren Beckley on the racetrack, and change for the lead of the race. So into the lead of the race goes the Citroen Racing, goes the Circuit Pro 385 numbered car, Tim Hartland, and now you do have to wake up Patrick Watts and tell him that, because he's going to have to be getting into the car himself fairly shortly, not that shortly, but an hour to go still for Tim Hartland. He's been at the wheel for just about an hour now, just over, and Darren Beckley then a little bit longer than that, an hour and a quarter for him behind the wheel of the Citroen Racing car. So 385 now leading 376 as they go through and complete their 186th lap. Also completing his 186th lap, 48 seconds behind, is Dan Bruce with the MSAR Old Hat Motorsport team car. They've now completed 186 laps as well, waiting for the next car to go through and complete 186 laps, and that should be Clive Brookson in the Eastgate Automotive car, waiting for him to cross the line. He's on the lead lap, and he's only about 30 seconds behind. He's gone through now, although the gap has gone up to Clive Brookson, and then Alex Day is the last car on the lead lap, 5 of them, and he'll be coming through in a further 40 or so seconds. So the lead very close between the top 5 cars, the race leader just having turned through Stowe Corner, and we're waiting for the 5th place car now, and it will be coming into Luffield and Woodcote in a couple of minutes time. So Alex Day down there just on the lead lap in 5th place, and as I say, with a change for the lead on the racetrack, not in the pits, but on the racetrack, with very nearly half distance of this race done. So it can't be denied that the safety cars that we've had through the night here at Silverstone have helped keep the race close and enabled the 5 cars that have remained on the lead lap to stay there. But nevertheless, still an evidence of the balance of this series and the competitiveness of this series, that after so many hours of racing we still get cars overtaking each other on the track for position. Into the pits on this lap has come number 390, Kieran MacDonald. He's into the pits for 390. Yes, that should be a scheduled pit stop, getting slightly more, slightly better fuel consumption as a result of that stint, having included some 16, 17 minutes behind the safety car that time. It was longer than that, it was 23 minutes behind the safety car, so that has certainly helped the fuel consumption and has helped Kieran McDonald to complete 39 laps on that stint. And so he, having done that stint there, we're now looking down at car 411. Stuart Lynn at the wheel of the Kraken Motorsport car. He's not on the lead lap, but coming towards the end of his 5th stint. They've done, it's on his 5th stint at the moment, they've done 4 pit stops in that car. And always easy to work out quite who's coming in when, but that car, working on the rotation of what we've had going, will be one of the next ones in, to be followed not long after that by Clive Brookson in the Eastgate Automotive car. And just looking down at the driver sequence in car number 318, and it may be that it's time for David Drinkwater to drive that car again. It's been through the hands of Dan Collett, Clive Brookson. James Poulton has done 1 stint. David Drinkwater has done 2 stints so far, so maybe another driver has to do 2 stints before we get David Drinkwater back in, but that car not very far away from its next pit stop either. Joking aside, although Patrick Watt's due into the 385 at the car's next pit stop, that car should have at least another 40 minutes worth of fuel before it's going to need to come in for its next refueling stop. And another pit stopper, and that's Katie Milner coming in. And I wonder if there's been a problem out on the circuit for the ASR car, number 390 of Mark Jones, because that car, Morgan Jones, get it right, number 390, Morgan Jones, losing 3 places on that lap and now losing 4 places. Did a 3 minutes 29 on his most recent lap, which is 5 to 7 seconds slower than the people around him were doing. So that's allowed Graham Coombs up into 11th place in the 488 car. 325 has moved up into with Paul Donkin behind the wheel into 10th place, and in number 398 that's allowed Adam Preble in the Silver Lake racing car up into 9th place, and Graham Davidson in 449 up into 8th place. So problem for Morgan Jones in the ASR car with a slow lap and now not coming round. I mentioned already Katie Milner was in the pits with the Team Merlin International car in 7th place, and that's having had a very long stint from Sammy Bowler. That's a somewhat shorter stint for Katie Milner, so can't quite necessarily explain why that has happened the way it has. But Katie Milner, having started the car, handed it over to Alice Hughes. Alice Hughes handed it over to Jemima Hepworth, and then Sammy Bowler doing the 46 lap stint, and then it came back into the hands of Katie Milner, and Katie Milner coming in after just 27 laps. So maybe that just as it's getting lighter, their strategy is to change some things on the car. Definitely there is a bit of light around the sky at the moment, not so you could see that much because it's a fairly dim and dismal morning, but some of the liveries on the cars now a little bit more visible as the cars come through. And yes, some more visible than others as they come through, but nevertheless a important milestone in the race when we just get a little bit of light in the sky, and with the race continuing to provide excitement. And although Darren Beckley losing the lead a couple of 3 laps ago, he's still going strongly and not losing much ground either to Tim Hartland. And that often happens, car comes past you and saying, oh, I can push on a little bit harder here, and Tim Hartland then 3 minutes 20.3 on his last lap, a 3:21.8 for Darren Beckley, so the gap first to second 6.2 seconds now. Dan Bruce in 3rd place is a further 37 seconds adrift, and then Clive Brookson 4th, a further 45 seconds behind that. As I get a new influx of power just to see my self through into the early hours, and if you are able to see the Alpha live stream, then a little bit of light visible as well there, looking down the International Pit Straight over the wing, the outline of the Club Corner grandstands visible just in the background. But rain continuing to drizzle down on the circuit, and the closed circuit TV being able to, and they do so very cleverly, switch themselves back into a colour mode, but still with a lot of spray and dust on the lenses to make working out what's going on a little bit more difficult. So Tim Hartland, 190th lap he is on now, and just being able to open up the margin. He's been able to do so over the course of this stint, and yes, how long have we been able to go on this tank of fuel? Probably until about 5:30, I would think, the half distance point. And then by rights it'll be Patrick Watts' turn to get into the car, but by my reckoning Darren Beckley will be the first one in, of those two at least. Dan Bruce is able to stay out a little bit longer, but of the leading pair, Tim Hartland just going through now and being followed through now by Darren Beckley. So that was a 6-second gap staying pretty much absolutely the same on that lap. Nothing to choose between the pair of them. So Darren Beckley holding his own, and in a sense, this still relatively early stage in the race, coming up towards half distance, there's still no reason to push on any harder than you feel comfortable to. Absolutely no risk must be the order of the day in a race like this, and just keep the car pointing in the right direction and keep it running cleanly and smoothly, and then just wait and see how the race pans out. Dan Bruce in third is lapping more quickly than either of the two in first and second, and that gap now down to 33 seconds, second to third, and then back to fourth place it's under a minute, 51 seconds, so still very close. 5 cars on the lead lap, 2 cars 1 lap behind. And then going down another 6 cars, just 2 laps behind. So still not very much to choose between that leading group of cars. 11 cars separated by just 2 laps. 3 laps behind are, in fact, in 11th place. Graham Coombs is just 2 laps behind with the roll centre car. The Mac Attack car, 347, Joe Wiggin back in that car. He's 2 laps behind the race leader, and then Josh Potter in the Spy Motorsport car, 370. He's 2 laps behind the race leader. So that's the bottom half of the, well, positions 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 13 at least, give you 2 laps behind, and then 3 laps behind is the Morgan Jones car number 390, which we identified as having lost some ground a little while ago. Didn't lose too much, and is now lapping quickly in Morgan's hands. In fact, that last lap from Morgan, the quickest one that he's done since he's been out there in the car, and that's a little while now. So Morgan Jones 14th, 15th is Daniel Quintero, he's 3 laps behind. 16th is Stuart Monument in the B Engineering Citroen, car 309, he is 3 laps behind. Also 3 laps behind is Mark Richards in the PrepTech UK car, 17th. James Little in the Emax Motorsport car 345, and Paul Plant just taking a place actually on that lap in the Bianco Auto Developments car, and Paul Plant then number 331 takes over in 19th place as Graham Hatfield gets up to speed. No, car number 20, Scuderia Sundial car actually makes a pit stop. That's why Paul Plant has moved past it, because Paul Rodison has just made a pit stop in the 20th placed car, the Scuderia Sundial car, which is, as I say, in Paul Rodison's hands at the moment. The Team Merlin International car back underway again after that pit stop. Now, I said it might be a bit early. Katie Milner, having brought the car in, has stayed behind the wheel and taken it back out again. The pit stop was fairly short, so might have been a little problem for the 480, Team Merlin International car. Let's just let's see if we can find a bit more detail on what happened in the pit stop. Yes, Katie Milner, 48 seconds, so that's more than a drive-through, but it's 20 seconds or so, 25 seconds at rest, and not quite sure what that might have been, but Katie Milner brought the car in after a stint of just 23 laps, 27 laps, and rather than the 37 which had been done earlier, but Katie did stay behind the wheel, so we can't quite explain what might have been the problem there. The 480 Team Milner International car, still Team Merlin International, Katie Milner at the wheel in 7th place overall still. Dan Bruce still there in 3rd place, closing in on Darren Beckley. I'm sure his pit board tells him he's coming, but 24 seconds is now the gap between 2nd and 3rd. And Dan Bruce with a fueled up car, relative at least to Darren Beckley's, so when Darren has to come into the pits, Daniel's still going to be out there, and will certainly take the place during the pit stop, if not catching Darren in the stint leading up to the pit stop. And so still very finely balanced indeed, just 30 seconds separating the first 3 cars, and nothing really to choose between any of them. The slightest hiccup in the pits, or a misplaced safety car, or a spin that ends up landing in the gravel and needing a tow out, and any of those 3 could lose their place, certainly in the lead group. And it's now 6 cars on the lead lap, because Stuart Lynn in the Kraken Motorsport car, number 411, has just managed to unlap himself, hasn't he? That's what's happened. That's what, yes, 3 minutes 14 is the gap from the leader to the Kraken Motorsport car. Stuart Lynn, number 411, the last lap time for that car was a 3 minutes and 37 seconds. So on the same lap according to that, but that may well be something that will change next time around. Certainly it's getting close to Stuart Lynn unlapping himself. And Tim Hartland on that lap a little bit quicker, so maybe he's managed to protect himself from that overlap. 3:18 is, yes, the lap time was 3:19 and the gap is 3 minutes 18. The lap time by the 411 car. Well, the 411 car's in the pits anyway, so that unlapping procedure, if it was about to happen, isn't going to now, because into the pits has come number 411 Stuart Lynn. So Stuart in the pits, and this will be for a routine stop for him, and that in terms of the pit stop cycle that now heralds will be mean that the 318 will also be shortly coming into the pits. That's the Eastgate Automotive racing car. Still Clive Brookson. And before him Dan Collett driving 2 good stints in that car, and so if anything, the good work that was done by David Drinkwater, James Poulton slightly undid. He wasn't quite able to keep the pace up to that of Dave Drinkwater, but we'll see what happens when that car comes in, which it will be doing very shortly, around about the next 5 minutes or so, so next 2-3 laps at most, I would say, for number 318. We've had a safety car period during Clive Brookson's stint, so might mean that he can go a little bit longer on his lap time. Indeed, Stuart Lynn did a significantly longer stint as a result of that. We ended up deciding it was about 20 minutes, the safety car interlude, which was the most recent one. So definitely getting a little bit lighter around the circuit. The Silverstone gantry more visible now than it was in the middle of the night, and that again just opening up some of the gaps perhaps between some of the cars, prepared to push on a little bit harder and just make the most of the fact that the visibility is a little bit better. What we really need is for the rain to completely stop. If it's not stopped already, actually, I'd say it was close to stopping. No sign of the rain spatters that we were getting on the monitors, and thanks to the automatic windscreen wipers, that's looking a bit clearer as well now. So the prospect of a dry line forming as we get into a time when the visibility is better, and some of the, I call them professional drivers, but there's anybody here who's a proper professional driver, but the more professional drivers, some of the drivers who have been doing it a bit longer, will be perhaps thinking that the schedule should allow them to get into the car now that it's got light. That's often a time when there are fast lap times to be made. Unlike a lot of 24-hour races, though, there's still a lot of cars out on the circuit. Some 24-hour races see a higher rate of attrition than you get in C1 racing, and as a result of that, there's not that many opportunities to get a clear lap.